In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use a heat shrink joint kit to make a waterproof cable joint on submersible cable. On the lead-out cable, I'll measure back 35 millimeters and mark to remove the outer insulation. Again, I'll make a mark at 45 millimeters to show the position of the inner heat shrink sleeve. And then I'll mark of 140 millimeters to show the position of the outer heat shrink sleeve. Let's remove the outer insulation from the lead-out cable. Now I'll mark 75 millimeters on the submersible cable to show how far back to remove the outer insulation. I'll make a second mark at 85 millimeters to show the positioning of the inner heat shrink sleeve, and then another mark at 180 millimeters to show the positioning of the outer heat shrink sleeve. Let's remove the outer insulation from the submersible cable. Now I'll go ahead and clean the ends with a wire stripper. It's very important that before you begin making the joint that you put all the heat shrink sleeves in place on the cable. First, I'll slide the 300 millimeters outer heat shrink sleeve on the submersible cable. Then I'll slide the 120 millimeters inner heat shrink sleeve on the submersible cable. Lastly, I'll slide on the ferrule heat shrink insulation sleeves on the longer side of each individual wire. Now I'll go ahead and fit and crimp the ferrules. I'll start with the earth wire feed both ends and so they overlap inside the ferrule. And then I'll go ahead and crimp both sides of ferrule. Next, I'll put the ferrule on the common wires, and I will join the yellow submersible wire to the black common wire of the let-out cable. Then I'll crimp both sides of the ferrule. I'll do the same for the main wire. I'll do the same for the auxiliary wire. And finally, in preparation for shrinking the joint on, I'll move the ferrule heat shrink insulation sleeves and center them over the 4 crimp ferrules. After centering the ferrule heat shrink insulation sleeves on the ferrules, I can now go ahead and heat the sleeves and shrink them over each wire. You can also use a candle for more precise heating. You'll see glue coming out of either end of the ferrule sleeve. Before I shrink the inner and outer sleeves, I'll abrade the cable up the outer markings we made earlier. I'll go ahead and slide the inner heat shrink sleeve over the joint using the inner marks to center the sleeve. Then I'll shrink the sleeve on with the heat gun, working my way from the center out to either side. Again, you'll see glue coming out of the ends of the inner sleeve. This is a good indication that the sleeve has been shrunk properly, and the glue will ensure a good seal. Finally, I'll line up the outer sleeve with the marks on the cable to center it over the joint. Then I'll shrink the sleeve on with the heat gun, working my way from the center out to either side. Again, you'll see glue coming out of the ends of the sleeve. Be sure to let the joint cool before applying any mechanical strain to the joint.